Hey everyone, I'm Jeff Bakalar, joined by Scott Stein. It's time for another terribly informative episode of Ask the Editors. That's right, it's iPad overtime this time around. Scott Stein got to review the iPad Air 2, so we're going to talk about these products, post-mortem, if you will.
Let's talk about these iPads.
First things first, what are your knee-jerk thoughts about the iPad Air 2 and the iPad Mini 3? We're going to find out if people should buy these, if you think it's worth their time and money to buy them. What do you think of them?
So here's the thing. Nobody was really excited about these iPads.
Still not.
There's a reason, because this looks like last year's iPad. This looks like last year's iPad. They both have Touch ID. We saw that in last year's iPhones. And this is pretty much the same as last year, just Touch ID. Then this one, you've got a faster processor. It is a little thinner.
Right.
It's got improved cameras. Who uses the camera on their iPads? It's nice to have, but I mean, you're talking, we really care about our screen, battery life, and size. Size is almost the same. Screen and battery life are about equivalent.
Right.
So average person probably doesn't need to upgrade to this. And it's not doing anything that's really significantly different. That being said, the speed is a lot faster. If you're a hardcore iPad user, it's a good time to upgrade, but it's not reinventing anything here.
Sure. So if someone comes up to you and asks, okay, I'm in the market for a new iPad, do you tell them, you say, hey, go right for the iPad Air 2, or do you say maybe the Mini 3 is for you? How do you sort of, assign what someone should buy?
Yeah, so it's a tough call, because if you are up for the newest technology, you want something that's going to run apps the best. You get this one. This is the only one that got a processor upgrade, and it's a faster A8 processor than are in the iPhones, significantly for some tasks. Now this one uses the A7. That's the same thing that's basically on the iPhone of last year.
Okay.
But it does fine for reading, for video playing, for basic stuff. And now the price drop on last year's model is down to, you get it for $349 with 32 gigs.
Okay.
That middle one. That's a great price to get what's basically a full-fledged iPad in the Mini. The one without Touch ID, called the iPad Mini 2 now. But then if I weren't doing that and I wanted something that was newer than that, I'd get the iPad Air 2. I'd pay up for the extra storage, because now it's 16, goes to 64, 128.
Right.
For the extra $100, bumping up to 64, that's a significant upgrade.
If someone has an iPad Air,
yeah,
are they even thinking about upgrading?
No, don't think about it. Do not think about it. An iPad Air is fine. In fact, you might even say some people might prefer that. You save $100 getting the iPad Air. I would say, though, if you're going for the larger size, I would still think about going for the Air 2, because it's down the road. iPads last a long time. For a couple of years down the road, 3 years from now, which is going to run the next version of iOS better? It's going to be the Air 2, because the processor is a lot faster. So you're going to save yourself the anxiety at that point in the future of having to upgrade.
Right.
So that's worth it.
So, I mean, do you think people who are maybe on the fence, do you think it's worth waiting for an Air 3? Is that ever an option?
It is something that's crossed my mind. It seems very tempting, because
you have interesting opinions on where this is all going.
Yeah, and I loved using the iPad from the beginning.
Right.
I thought it really did a lot of things for me. As time goes on, I probably use it less. Phones do more. And I still think the iPad is the best tablet that's out there. The apps available for it are great. And it performs great, but it's not doing anything different. So if you want something that's going to feel more like a laptop, there's reasons why we use our laptops and our desktops. This doesn't do it. Are they going to have a 12-inch iPad? Are they going to have something that does split screen and becomes more like a Surface or a MacBook iPad hybrid? I feel like it's got to happen sometime.
Sure, it makes sense.
Maybe, will it happen next year? Probably not, but I would hold out if I already owned an iPad Air. But if it's been a couple of years, this is a pretty safe one to dive into. Just don't expect that it's going to do anything other than run super fast. Oh, and Touch ID is useful.
Yeah.
It's just not maybe as super as useful as you think, because the Apple Pay that's built in here allows you to make payments on compatible apps, not websites.
Okay.
So you can't just go to Safari, make a payment on something, and then use that.
And I don't know what kind of situation. It does make sense. I don't know what kind of situation you'd find yourself in where you would take this to a retailer. Is that even an option?
You never do that, because it's not a tap to pay. So
you
thankfully will not be tapping this
That's
on
absurd.
Paying at a Starbucks with this. So
Right.
Oh,
that's a nice breeze. I appreciate it.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
No, they smartly didn't even think about that.
Good.
This is instead what Apple Pay means is they store your credit card information centrally.
Right.
And then compatible apps, again, it has to be an app, which is annoying right now, because a lot of people shop on browsers.
Totally.
You do that, you tap, and you pay, and you don't even have to, like with Uber, things like that, you may not have to even create an account.
Right.
You could just use this and bypass that.
And be done with it.
But how many apps are going to use it? It's going to take time. And I still feel like you want this to work in Safari.
Definitely.
Because I feel like 90% of the purchasing I do on an iPad, you're usually doing through web browser.
Absolutely.
But that's hard.
If I could avoid the old like lean to the side with the that shame lean,
the shame
where
lean?
you're just like get the wallet out.
Oh
and you're
yeah,
like,
well that's what exactly.
God.
Go across the room, get my wallet, make a. So that's nice. Knowing where the Touch ID is on an iPad sometimes. As I used it, I'm like, was it on the bottom? Is it on the side?
Right.
Which finger am I using? Because the iPhone is always like in one spot. That's a small note, but it's nice to have. It's just not. I don't think it's a must-have.
Right. Okay.
To have that on.
Now, switching to the Mini 3 real quick.
Right.
A lot of people are saying the word incremental is generous.
Extremely generous.
Yeah. So explain that real quick.
These are gold, by the way. That's like a light bronzing. That's what the gold color looks like.
Yeah, I think we all got lightly bronzed over this one.
A little champagne love on the back. I would not get the gold color.
Yeah.
But you take an iPad Air from last year, iPad Mini from last year. You slap Touch ID on it, and you have a gold option.
Okay.
Ta-da.
That's
so
it.
you're paying $100 really for Touch ID.
Which is insanely not worth it.
You don't do that. Now, if you want a super high storage iPad Mini, if you want a 64 or 128, Apple has now forced you into having to get this one.
Right.
And they shaved $100 off those configurations, so you could justify it and say that it's kind of costing what it would have last year. But
right.
So you're stuck. The last year's version now is up to 32 gigs.
Okay.
That's where they get you. But 32 is fine for most people, especially if you're not using this for a lot of hardcore things. That you can stream videos. You can cloud, store a lot of stuff now. So I still like the size of this one a lot.
All right. Very good. Okay. So I think that about wraps it up. The takeaways. Not worth an upgrade if you have an Air. What's like the minimum iPad version that you have that you would recommend an upgrade?
That's a good question. I would say anything before the 4th gen iPad.
So if you've got
which is the one that came out the fall.
Right.
The year they came out with 2.
The screw over iPad.
And everyone was pissed off
because
there was a large
8 months
one.
right after.
And why did this happen?
Right.
I bought the one from the spring.
Oh, so you
and then they had the one in the fall, and I was
like, hurt.
Yeah. So the 3rd gen iPad is pretty long in the tooth now.
Yeah.
And was discontinued a while ago. I would say this is a really good time to upgrade from that. You got a 4th gen iPad, which was an A6X processor. You could still hold on. It has Lightning.
Right.
I think that if you'd notice this was thinner.
Sure.
But you want to hold on to your iPads, I think, as long as possible.
Right.
Until you feel like they're really slow. Unless you're playing a lot of games, or if you are a person who's doing video editing.
You have 9 apps open at once.
Bleeding edge iPad graphics work. There are people who do that. Then you could see clear advantages. But most people are using this for web browsing, videos, books, email. You're going to be fine.
All right.
So I'd say that. And for the Mini, I think it's all about last year's version. There's no significant differences here. Nice that the price dropped on last year's, but there are a lot of tablet options now.
Sure.
Got a bigger market. I still think overall for the apps that it runs, it's a really nice deal. I just wish they bumped the processor up.
Just a little bit. Throw us a bone here.
Do something a little different.
All right, well, there you have it. Whether or not you should buy any of the new iPads, Scott Stein, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, you bet.
This is always a pleasure. Tune in next time for the next Ask the Editors. I'm Jeff Bakalar. We'll see you next.